So thanks, Tim. Again, I'm Courtney Kuhn, and I first became interested in privacy policy about 2 years ago, and since I no longer have a Facebook, I have more time to research privacy policy. So today I'd like to address where your right to privacy comes from, how privacy laws are affecting you, new policies that are trying to protect you, and lastly, how Target does predict you're pregnant. So first off, there are many privacy laws. Most significantly, the Constitution provides the right for private citizens to be free from public scrutiny. More specifically, the Fourth Amendment provides the right to be secure in your persons, papers, effects. And in the 1960s, the Supreme Court began to reinterpret this law to also include the right against an invasion on your privacy. From this judicial decision and other case precedent, the right to privacy is now focused on whether you have a reasonable expectation of privacy. The divide is between private and public acts. Your private life is private and your public life is not, and so it's not protected. But with technological advances, the divide between your private and public life has become so blurred that determining whether you have a reasonable expectation of privacy proves a little more difficult. So the right to privacy is so essential, but the Fourth Amendment only protects you against government intrusion. Meanwhile, your privacy is under assault by corporations. Now, 800 million users worldwide have chosen to forego a lot of their privacy rights when they create a Facebook. But this assault on your privacy is much larger than social media. Rapid technological progress coupled with the slow progression of laws has left every American consumer subject to corporate policies where your information can be bought and sold. Every time you turn on your smartphone, check your email, drive, go shopping, your consumer habits are being analyzed. Now, this data can then be used for a variety of purposes, from a harmless coupon you receive in the mail, to political campaigns, to more consequentially determining if you're insurable. Increasingly, the only information that remains truly sacred are your health records, your conversation with your legal counsel, your GPA, thank God, and if you're Catholic, your confessions. So your personal information is very valuable to companies. If they can find a snippet about your life, they can then cater to you as the individual consumer. So the Interactive Advertising Bureau reported that during one quarter in 2011, revenues from digital advertising alone were $7.88 billion. This was an increase by 22% from the previous year during the same quarter. So this just goes to show that this is a massive industry that is growing rapidly, and the foundation of the industry, your personal information. So due to the nature of the internet, where every click can be tracked, online companies have become the target of new legislation to try to curb the amount of information they retain about you when you use their services. Recently, Facebook and Google have been hotbeds of controversy. Facebook got in trouble not for what users chose to upload, but rather for what they were doing with the information once it was already up on the site. The Federal Trade Commission, which oversees consumer protection laws, was specifically looking at the period December 2009. During this time, Facebook was engaging in, quote, unfair and deceptive practices. What they were doing was making the information you had deemed private, public. When you were to click on an advertisement along your Facebook page, those advertisers could then access your personal information. Application developers could get your photos and videos, and this assault on your privacy didn't end when you deactivated your account. So the FTC, rightfully so, didn't like this, and they gave Facebook a slap on the wrist. Now, good news, your private information is private, so you don't have to go home and change a lot of things. They are subject to regular privacy audits for the next 20 years, and they are subject to a $16,000 fine for every violation per day. Now, Bloomberg News reported in February that Facebook is worth $100 billion with B. For them, a $16,000 fine is kind of like the fine I pay when I return my overdue library book, but probably cheaper. I haven't really spent the time to figure out exactly how much that would work. Google also has been the source of international controversy. Their new privacy policy allows Google to track your searches and then share your information with their partner sites. So those sites include Gmail, YouTube, and Blogger. So for example, I go on the web and I Google Boston College. When I go onto YouTube, they might recommend videos about Boston College. Now that seems harmless, but according to this is a violation of European Union law because so much information about you is being collected on such a massive server. Also recently, on an interview on C-SPAN, the FTC chair, John Leibowitz, called these changes binary and brutal. So we'll see what happens with that privacy policy. There's also been increasing pressure. Another example of trying to curb the amount of data companies can receive about you is the do not track option. This was proposed by the FTC, and a lot of companies have already adopted it. It allows the individual user to opt out of having their personal information collected and stored. So for example, if you were to go on to Google, they can keep your information. But as the head of the Digital Advertising Alliance points out, this really isn't an accurate depiction of what's going on. This law only prevents first-party sites, such as Google or Yahoo, from then selling your information to third-party advertisers. So it is going to cut on Google's revenue by about $5 billion, but they're a $40 billion company. The White House recently got involved. On February 23rd, to be exact, they unveiled their Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. Now, this calls for the Commerce Department to get together with companies, privacy advocates, and stakeholders to develop and implement new privacy laws based on this Consumer Privacy Bill of Rights. Now, this has some great goals. It is designed to make sure that consumers know when they're being tracked, and it recognizes that consumers have a right to know what information companies retain about them. But there are a couple problems with this. First of all, the corporations will have to develop the privacy policies themselves, and in a lot of cases they have to opt in to being regulated. So even though this is a move in the right direction, it's not comprehensive, but as the FTC chair just recently stated, companies are able to reform themselves, and sometimes all it takes is a nice little nudge from the government. So if these invasions on your privacy are so egregious, why aren't there sweeping legislation and harsh penalties? Well, I really think there are 3 reasons. The first being the economy. We're in a recession, and Americans aren't really going to support increasing regulation on a billion-dollar industry. The second is lobbying. These are big companies, they have big money, and they've got big lobbying firms. You better believe that any new law is going to be met with fierce opposition. The last reason, and I think the most ironic reason why there is a change in privacy laws, has to do with politics itself. Politicians need your personal information so that they can win their campaigns, so they can stay in office to pass sweeping legislation. It's kind of like a vicious cycle. So, for example, Politico reports that in January alone, the Republican and Democratic National Committees spent $1 million on data services, which is short for buying your information. What campaigns then do with this information is put it into their database. Now, years ago, especially before the internet, it was very difficult to profile voters. You were either a Republican, a Democrat, or a various third party. Now, campaigns are so sophisticated that I can go onto a database and target every individual voter based on every political or most political preferences if they've ever expressed an opinion. So this really is no different than a store sending you a coupon in the mail for something you bought last week. And actually the best case study of how your information is used to win campaigns is Obama for America. They've really revolutionized how they use information to target voters. In 2008, they were incredibly effective because he won. And you can only imagine how much more advanced they've become in the past 4 years in using your information to figure out if you're a potential Obama voter. Now, I mean, everybody does this, but they've really revolutionized how it's being done. So, your information is very important to campaigns. But why are my personal preferences so important to companies? Well, when companies are trying to figure out how to target to you individually, there's a couple things they use, both private and public data. This is what they can find out about you pretty easily, especially if you use a credit card, a coupon, or fill out a survey. And this is what they can buy about you. Now, in a recent New York Times report, How Companies Learn Your Secrets, Target specifically uses this information to determine consumer habits and personal trends. Apparently, there's a calculus for mastering our subconscious urges. So Target determined that the best time to find or to develop customer loyalty was during a major life event. Some examples of this are graduating from college, moving, getting a new job. But the best time to get women to become loyal shoppers at Target is when they are pregnant. This is pretty easy to find out once a woman had a child, because that's public record. That's easy. But Target wanted to know if you were pregnant while you were still pregnant, so that you could come to the store, you buy all your baby supplies, you're pregnant, you're tired, you start to buy everything you need at Target, and suddenly Target becomes your go-to place. It's absolutely brilliant. So what Target started to do was look at the women who were registered in their registry for their baby showers. They kept track of what these women were buying and when they were buying it. Through these studies, they were able to come up with a list of 25 items that, when purchased in a particular order and a particular combination, would give you a prediction pregnancy score. So, for example, if you were to purchase these 4 items, a bright blue rub, zinc and magnesium supplements, cocoa butter lotion, and a purse that could be a diaper bag, so not necessarily a diaper bag, just big enough, you have an 87% chance of being pregnant, and if you bought these items in March, you're due in late August. Now, this is remarkable because those 4 items I don't think are really associated with pregnancy. I think I've bought 3 out of 4 in the last year. So, I mean, law and ethics do collide, and even though this is perfectly legal, Target found out that pregnant women were really offended by this, because how could a company know something so personal about you when you haven't told them? So they really did have to modify how they were marketing to these women. So, you know, you get a coupon in the mail, you save a couple bucks on diapers, you're going to need a lot of those. Target knows a little bit about you, and you save money. So do people really care if companies are keeping all this information? Well, the answer is apparently not. A lot of people are really offended. A recent Pew Research study showed that 59% of Americans thought that companies retaining personal information for these types of targeted ads actually was an unjustified use of their information. But at the same time, 56% of the people didn't want the government to get more involved. So this really tells me that people are moderately offended by it, but probably for one of the 3 reasons I already mentioned, or the simple fact that they're saving a few dollars, they don't really want the government getting involved. Another study showed that 80% of people, when there was no price difference, so the items are the same cost, they would choose the company that has less personal information. So this just shows that people do actually, they would rather go to a company that didn't keep all this information. But at the same time, only 9% would pay additional money to avoid getting marketing emails. It should also be noted that this study was conducted in Germany, where they value privacy a lot more than we do in America. So why don't we value our privacy? I really think there are 2 big reasons. One, it's really impossible to put an intrinsic, your privacy really doesn't have an intrinsic value. I have no clue how much my privacy is worth. Is it worth $100, $1,000, $10,000? Companies know how much they're making by knowing their information, but me, I don't really know, so it's really hard to defend something when you don't know how much it's worth. And the second reason I really think is, going back to the foundation of all privacy laws, I don't believe a reasonable expectation of privacy can exist in a world where your private life has become public via social media. When friends can upload pictures about you without your consent, and every mundane task is tweeted, I believe your private life really has become public. Either way, the trends in privacy policy will continue, and we should all be aware of how companies are using our information.